Good morning, Khothatso. Thank you so much for making the time. Welcome to the Angle podcast.
Morning. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I find you to be placed very interestingly, a thought leader within the risk, innovation, sustainability, socio-economic issues. How did you find yourself in this space?
So, risk. Let me start with risk. I'm a trained risk professional. So I can think all my career life,
Right.
I was in risk. And I worked for various companies. I was in insurance for the longest time. And then I landed up I'm not sure if I can mention it.
Yeah, you can.
I landed up working for Media 24. You know Media 24, right?
Right.
Yeah. So at Media 24, I headed risk. I was in the risk department until such time when sustainability came to our show.
Okay.
Right. So sustainability, my colleague will speak more about the SDGs.
Okay.
Sustainability, the SDGs were implemented, I think, from 2016.
Yeah.
It's quite new, right? And the requirement is for companies to transform how they do business. As companies run business, they need to be mindful of societies where they run business, uplift societies, and also be mindful of the environment. They call it triple P, right? Profit, people,
Yeah.
and planet. So then, based on the SGBs, they are kind of like guidelines,
Okay.
global guidelines, as to how to go about to be mindful of, as I said, the social as well as the environment. So when it came to us, when the memo came to companies, I think it was around 2021 or earlier than that, for companies to start transforming, and it started with the listed companies in South Africa. And I worked for one of the listed companies. So being in risk, it landed with me. All right. So it was interesting. It was something new and very interesting. So we started manually working with Excel sheets and just trying to put together the data, collecting the data, measuring data. It's the first time we do it. And, trial and error, until we get it right.
Yeah.
And whilst I was doing that, I was approached by a lot of sustainability service providers,
Okay.
right, that were bringing technology into the space to say, you know what, you don't have to be doing it manually with spreadsheets and things like that. But I think what interested me the most with those companies that were approaching us, as most of them were coming from outside the borders of South Africa.
Interesting.
And that triggered me to start researching more, right? I researched and I found that, there are no local players. And even a few that seem to be based in South Africa are not South African companies. So most of them, they don't have offices in South Africa. They operate from their mother countries, and they just contact us to say we can do this for you, whilst they like your Uber type of thing,
right.
but in sustainability technology space. And with the unemployment rate in South Africa sitting where it is, and I kind of wasn't happy seeing that this space is new, is growing. I mean, energy transition has massive growth opportunities, the whole green transition, sustainability,
Right.
and I mean, it offers opportunities in different ways. There's carbon accounting. There is, auditing as well, sustainability audit, data auditing. So the data-centric, pathway to sustainability as well. So it offers a lot of opportunities. And I'm looking at this thinking that, we're going to see a lot of, growth in the sustainability space. But how are we going to grow if there are no local players?
Right.
We will forever be told what to do by other people. And another thing is sustainability, the impact of climate change, for instance, context driven. You can't, how it impacts us in Africa is different from how it impacts the West, how it impacts all the regions.
Right.
So now you are sitting in a position where you are listening to people that don't understand how climate change impacts you, how resilient you are as a country, So that triggers me to do a research.
Yeah.
So I found myself doing 2 jobs.
2.
Yes. I registered a company in 2018.
Yeah.
Right. But I continued to work because I was not ready. I had a child that is still in school. So you just don't wanna, make a move.
The risk is too big.
Yes, the risk is too much. So I just continued working and for a little while.
Yeah.
And as soon as she finishes her education and she went to university, she asked me, with all our kids, they don't know what they want to do when they go to university. So I convinced her to study climate change because that's where jobs are going to be,
And she took you up on it?
She's, and I think it was a bit of a gamble from my part because, children, they hardly ever want to do what you did as a parent.
Of course.
Very rare. They just want to be the opposite, But once she started, she just couldn't stop talking about, social injustices, climate change, things like that. And it was exciting for me to see her dive deep into the topic, and she loves it.
Why was it important for you for her to get into this space?
So, okay. One of the things is I'm a graduate as a parent myself, right? And I was aware that the qualifications that worked for me wouldn't work for her. She needs to study, to be targeted in her study. And I remember telling her that study smart, not too hard, and go to the fields where there's growth, number one. Number two, not everyone is there. You want to differentiate yourself, you want to stand out in your corner, but just do your research and things like that. And when I introduced it to her, she was keen on it. And I suppose the good thing is she probably wasn't sure yet what she wanted to study at the moment. So what was important for me, we hear government right now saying unemployment is this much because there are no skills. And when you look at how many Black kids graduate in this country, you'll be shocked.
Right.
There's no skills. And then they turn around and say, but the kids are studying the wrong fields. And I didn't want my daughter to study a wrong field.
To be part of that statistic.
Part of that statistics. And I also wanted to drive the movement towards saying if we really looking into inclusive economy, and remember the owners of production, they are not opening doors for inclusive economy. So we need to develop new industries. This is a new industry.
It is.
So we have to saturate it as the locals and the previously disadvantaged South Africans. Yes.
So if you were to, I'm interested in this space of risk, sustainability, and this concept that you mentioned now, which is auditing sustainability in companies. But when you do risk assessments for a company, what process do you follow there? What are you looking for in terms of Are you looking for the threats towards the company holistically, or are you targeting different departments to go, okay, if you don't get those processes right, these are the risks that you face? Or what is that process of risk assessments and analysis in big corps?
Okay, so just in a nutshell, you are identifying incidents that haven't happened yet, but that could happen.
Okay.
So you are identifying or you look at all the departments,
Right.
holistically to see where the threats are. You just used the correct phrase there. So you find threats, and also that also and you identify them. You try to come up with mitigation strategy before. So it's almost as if you plan something that you plan the accident before it happens. So the road is not good in this area and it could cause an accident. What do? You mitigate that cause by fixing the road. You fix things before
the actual problem comes.
So essentially that's what you do. And that also landed me sitting here and owning a business, because that's how I approach life in general. So I see a problem and I identify a lot of people say I live for the future. So I identify problems that could impact me in the future. And then see what I can do now to make sure that when I get there, I don't I don't encounter those problems.
And then I assume that's how sustainability then weaves into that. I mean, the more prepared you are, the more sustainable the business would be, or the more sustainable the project you're working on would then be, because down the road here are the risks that we face, and we've put in measures in place to make sure that we can mitigate those risks. In that way, the business then survives. Is that how you then speak to sustainability in that process?
That's definitely how you speak to sustainability from that perspective. But we are a bit reactive when it comes to sustainability.
In what way?
Because climate change is here. We didn't prevent it before. So now we are resolving climate change impacts. But it happens. It happened in KwaZulu-Natal. I remember when we started this journey, I mean, I sat in a global platform where countries speak about. I was fortunate enough to work for a multinational company. So when we have global meetings, so we speak about the impact in our respective countries. I remember very early in the years, we used to brag about how we are not really impacted, like your Caribbeans, your like America as well. So we were not impacted like them. And so we could still say that the risks lies with the coastline. It still is.
Still is,
But we are seeing, I mean, 2 years ago in Midrand, we saw something that we've never seen before.
The hailstorm.
And I mean, Pretoria not so long ago. And KZN is coastline, but the intensity keeps increasing. And poor people get displaced the most, they get impacted the most because they don't have resilience. We don't have the resilience. This is the resilience that we need to build. We are building the resilience when the problem is here. So the pillars of sustainability, there's 3 pillars of sustainability. Is environmental, social, and governance. So from social perspective as well, we in South Africa, I mean, socio-economic issues that we suffer, we've been talking about them in the last 30 years. But we're not getting it right. I mean,
what do you think? What are we doing wrong? Why aren't we getting this right?
I think it is left to I think companies that
Yeah.
operate in our country play a major role
Okay.
in closing that gap. So if they treat it as a checklist rather than the willingness,
Okay.
and just wanting to do the right thing, number one.
Right.
Number two, not doing it for the checklist. That's when we hear a lot of people, so companies appear to be complying, from the outside, but when you get inside, is it the case? And this thing that we keep hearing about, companies just creating a face,
Right.
just having a
Right.
face.
Right. Right.
And there's a lot of women that just grew career-wise based on the drive for inclusive economy. Is it, do they even have the power, if it is what is happening, why are we seeing a different response on the ground? It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you reckon it's spoken about enough? And I'm talking from a media perspective, you having a lot of experience in media. Is it spoken about enough? And again, when you do risk analysis for any media organization, is it a risk overlooked, which potentially is an opportunity for them to cover, create more stories, create more awareness, and ultimately meet their bottom lines if, they're covering issues that really impacting people?
Okay, so it is spoken
Okay.
enough, right? I suppose in many cases that's where it ends. Like every aspect of our country,
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk, no
Okay.
implementation, right? And when I start the sustainability journey, we started collecting data, the data centric platform that we started embarking on. It was very easy to collect data, the environmental data, because there's no persona there. It's just like, okay, now we're going to report on environment. It's fair. It's all good. But when you tap onto the social part of it, where you look at things like, executive management, salaries versus everyone's salary, those are the gaps that sustainability seeks to close, right? But when you start tapping on that, that's where a lot of these companies are uncomfortable to disclose, because the disclosures is voluntary at the moment. So once we start seeing regulations tightening up, I think that's where we're gonna see a real impact, because at the moment, I feel like most part of the social aspect of sustainability is mainly a checklist, and just to say I remember all my life of working from when I was in financial institutions, I just didn't like going to CSI projects. I never liked going to those, because you go there. I'm one of those people, right? That we go to. So we go to schools in the townships, and it's a checklist exercise. You can see that we in and out, we can report and done, but then it just, there was no tangible impact to the people, So I think the willingness to make an impact and to recognize that a thriving South Africa requires everyone to be included in the economy. I don't necessarily believe, I've seen, my daughter applied for a COJ job, right? It's sustainability adaptation or climate change adaptation job. And so the criteria was postgraduate and environmental, climate change, those disciplines. And the number of people that were there.
Oh, interesting.
It was horrified to see the number of Black children that were vying for those two positions. And one thing I was sure of, all these kids that are here have a postgraduate qualification in environmental science. And they are vying for 2 jobs, entry jobs. And there is hundreds of them. So that also tells you that the skills are there and the education is there.
Right.
But there is something that is missing.
The willingness to implement
The willingness to take these kids by the hand and just help them find the way.
Speaking of risk, is it that we're not assessing the risk well enough? And I'm talking risk in terms of climate change.
Yeah.
To say, I mean, if we were very clear around the risks of climate change, we would make sure that we use the skills that we have to do the research, to create programs where we can try and find a way to curb this. But therein lies my question, I guess. Are we assessing climate change in South Africa well enough to know what risks there lie? I mean, if we're not using the skills that we have, that is.
So we still rely a lot
Yeah.
on I mean, we've only launched this year, early this year.
Okay.
So yeah, we're hoping to take the ropes, and we still rely heavily on outsiders to come and tell us.
So we don't have the
assess
data?
the risk for us. We are building the data at the
Okay.
moment. A lot of companies have the data at the moment. And government, with the Climate Change Act that was signed last year, I think last year, July,
Okay.
right? Also, I think how it's going to work, the municipalities, so each region, all the companies, it's going to start with the companies.
Okay.
They have to start building their data sets.
Okay.
And with that, they're going to report the data to the local government. That's how the government is going to start building the data, And the jobs are in the building of that
The data.
So that's where we need to fight for our space as South Africans, that we can't have people from outside to come and build this data for us.
Right.
We are capable, we can do it.
And how difficult is it to create an organization that can build that data essentially to fit into the local municipality database?
It's I mean, I've created it.
Right.
It's not easy at all. And I had to work 2 jobs, right? So that the money that I get from one job can fit into this company that I started.
Okay.
And I went out and I sourced skills from different people.
Yeah.
I kind of like I think I executed a task team for this. And we met every Saturdays, including Tiba. So every Saturdays we decided what's next, what to do until we start launching, right? And we came together. I think we probably also need that collaboration. There's a lot of skills at Timologong, for instance.
Yeah.
But then the business etiquette, is it there? So the creators, the innovators, they are inventors. But then how do they commercialize their inventions? How do they collaborate with people? I mean, there's finance, there's, so I created a strategic partnership of different facets of business. We have admitted attorneys. Their job is to track the regulations, to make sure that we are on point with the regulations.
Right.
We have CAs that work
Chartered
with us.
accountants.
Yes, that work with us. And we don't even pay them. For now.
I was thinking, what salary bill are you sitting on?
We went and we sold. I had meetings with the people every weekend.
Yeah.
I sold the idea to them that if we're waiting for money, we will never regain our economy. We will never partake in the economy as Black people. We don't have the money. We don't have the capital. We have ourselves. We are educated. We have the knowledge. Can we, with the linear approach, linear financial approach, can we go live? And with a promise that, once business starts flowing in, everyone has a stake, So that was the approach. So the financial investment was quite low from that perspective, because the personnel that were there, it's just amazing people that are very, very skilled,
Yeah.
that helped us put this together. Some of them are sitting in the background. You won't know them. You won't hear about them.
Right.
Because they work. You can't get people out of their paying jobs. I've had to work 2 jobs,
Sheesh.
So
Yeah, I had to
most
bootstrap.
of us worked 2 jobs. We met on Saturdays and to execute this strategy until
Yeah.
I now walk away from media and to focus on the company.
And this company is MN Risk
MN
Services.
Risk Services, yeah.
Are you primarily looking at risk services in the climate change space, or is it other sectors as well?
So we don't want to be all over the place,
Okay.
right? Our primary focus is climate change because we feel that's where the growth is.
Okay.
Okay. But then we have the skills,
Okay.
So the other risks like occupational health and safety, they are easily achievable. So we added them there, because we have the skills, we can do it, and we also came up with, once we started with innovation in the sustainability space, and then we already crossed over to occupational health and safety. How do we digitalize? The lady here just now was talking about how we can resolve gender-based violence with digital platforms like your software. And I'm already thinking that's what we do, but in a small scale, not for the country at large, because that's what we need. But there's a procedure that follows there.
Okay.
So we also identified that in the occupational health and safety space, it's quite labor intense, and it's still manual. So we're taking all those manual processes, and we just digitalized and automated them.
Okay.
It's exciting.
So is MN Services, Risk Services rather, a services only company, or do you also have products that you're building?
So we built with the services.
Okay.
We also in the tech space.
Okay.
Hence, you see us in all these tech gatherings. We are in the tech space. We've built an ESG tracker.
ESG tracker.
Yeah. So it's a carbon footprint, environmental data tracker. So remember I said at the beginning we were working with spreadsheets where you collect data. So now with those spreadsheets, we've created an automated system of collecting data.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I met with the young entrepreneurs at Tshimologong.
Okay.
I came to Tshimologong and I said to them, I need to build the system, and can you help us with that? They introduced me to Tiba.
Okay.
And I met with Tiba. Tiba met with my daughter as well, who sort of facilitated with the research that she does. She'll tell you she's more into research with the research that she does. And Tiba's software development, they just took this to another level.
And your daughter is a co-founder of the company?
She is a co-founder, yeah.
Okay.
So they took this to another level. They put some freshness into it,
So what does the product do exactly?
It calculates your emissions.
I see.
So when they talk about your electricity or energy emissions, what does that mean?
Right.
The system quantifies that. So there's a lot of data. There's a lot of, for instance, with your electricity, let's just use electricity as example, right? And how do you quantify carbon footprint for this building? So you need your electricity bills. So when you look at your ESCOM bills, it will tell you your kilowatt per hour consumption. So you take all those consumptions, quantify them, and there is factors, CO2 factors that are used to convert that into CO2 data. So what the system does is it collects all those bills and the consumption, the kilowatt consumption, and then there's calculators built in the system.
Right.
It converts it to CO2 data. So it
Yeah.
does the same also for fuel consumption, your petrol, it does the same. It's the same process for petrol consumption, but also it has your water consumption. So you can track consumption of water for each building. Right. The same way. And then there's waste as well, waste metrics that are built into the system. With that, you can calculate the amount of waste that is generated from this building. But not just that. So what it does is it helps you track from materials. So companies like, let me use a e-commerce business, for instance.
Yeah.
It's very, very intense on the environment because of the amount of packaging that
especially if they're not using recyclable material, right?
Definitely.
Or does it matter? Does it not matter?
It does definitely matter. It definitely matters.
Yeah.
So if they don't use a recyclable material,
right,
that material ends at landfill.
Right.
So the system will break down the type of material that they use, right? And it sort of give them KPIs in terms of, the type of, if you choose to use biodegradable material, for instance, it helps. But if you use material that are recyclable, then you have to prove that those materials went for recycling.
Right.
So you have to give stats as to how much of that material was indeed recycled and how much did you deter some of that waste go to the landfills, which is a problem. We are trying to deter waste from going to landfills.
Interesting. Yeah. So are you saying this software can get to a point where we are able to tell how much CO2 emissions or how much of a carbon print we have in an entire city?
So it starts with buildings, right? And with companies and buildings, right? And that's what we have control over. But in terms of the CO2 for a city, I think in the COJ they've placed they call them the sensors.
Okay.
They placed a technology that can read CO2 from the atmosphere. I'm not privy to that technology.
Okay.
I just read on the news that they
have something
like that. But then it's overall, right? And the objective is to get companies to trade responsibly. So you cannot, as a company, reduce what you don't measure. So now it goes back to the question, even though as a city, they have a way to quantify their carbon footprint for the city. They can do that.
Yeah.
But then how do you then apportion for each company to reduce or to play their part? So for them to play their part in their reduction pathway, they need to start quantifying for their operations.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
Are you saying it's a better approach to be bottom up or top down? Because I'm thinking if the city can account for the carbon footprint, then the city can go, okay, we are sitting with this problem. Our carbon footprint in the city is this big, and this is the risks that we are faced with. To avoid these risks, we're going to have to come up with regulations or governance, whatever process they need to follow to go, okay, now that this is where we are, this is our CO2 footprint, this is the image that we have painted. Let's go down to where does it come from? And then issue bills, issue things that you can do to reduce your CO2. Yeah. Because if you make it this building's responsibility, they'll try and find ways to cut the corners so they don't have to pay much. But if the city can take that responsibility from the top and then go, okay, this is the carbon footprint in the city. We cannot have this.
Yeah.
But I doubt we understand the risk to the level of saying, look, if our carbon footprint as a city is at this level, these are the risks and the dangers that we are facing as a community. And I think if that message was communicated very well, then companies, it would make sense for a buy-in from the community at large to then go, okay, guys, we cannot have bottles lying around. At the end of the day, we're going to have a hailstorm. If we can connect this directly to something, to a potential danger, and not fear, but I mean real data that says, look, guys, if we continue in this trajectory, we are bound to hit something like this.
Yeah.
But I don't find that risk is well articulated such that the companies themselves are aware and the general citizens are aware of what these risks are and the impact thereof.
Yeah. So I think you'll be surprised that not all companies are aware.
Yeah.
We have been talking to companies now recently, and the last company that I spoke with, the guy was like, "This is interesting, but we were not aware." And it's not a small company, you know. So I think it how they implement is in trenches,
Yeah.
right? And the top down approach, I would imagine the apportioning,
Yeah.
right? And the government does have the threshold to say we want to reduce by this much,
Okay.
right? And there's carbon tax as well, you know, that was implemented. So the regulations and the laws are unfolding, you
Okay.
know,
Okay.
and so the bottom-up approach, how it's effective is just holding companies
Yeah.
accountable for reporting their emissions. And you mentioned whitewashing or greenwashing,
Yeah.
which is where companies could understate their emissions. So it's more like your financial reporting. Only with your carbon reporting, it's non-financial data reporting. So it follows the same process of auditing,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
and yeah, so the disclosure process is the same. And
So would the city audit adequately though? I mean, if there's already issues of greenwashing and we're going to leave this in the owners, let's say I own a company that's big enough to have a significant enough carbon footprint, and I'm charged to create my own report. If I'm doing this by myself, if I'm looking at business and I'm prioritizing my bottom lines, chances are I'm going to greenwash a bit.
yeah, we've seen a lot of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the auditing is
Yeah.
not essentially by government. It's
Okay.
just like any other auditing. Like your auditing firms are
Right,
the ones
right.
that are auditing this.
Okay.
Your usual auditing firms that
Right.
audit financial data are the ones that are auditing this data before
Okay.
you can report it in your integrated report as a
Okay.
company. All right. And yeah, so I don't see a lot of companies greenwash data.
Okay.
You know, because that's going to get you into trouble. You can greenwash a lot, but in terms of calculated data, it's almost like lying about your financials as a company. You know, so I can equate it to that.
Okay.
So it goes through an audit process, just like your financial data. It's reported alongside financial data, you know. So I don't think in terms of greenwashing environmental data, I see a lot of that perhaps on social, you know, but on environmental data, it's kind of you know, and I mean the JSE introduces ways for companies that are high emitters or high significant CO2 companies to offset the risk. So they can, you know, invest in certain activities, green activities that will help them offset the risk. At the end of it all, disclosures, you know, it depend on companies to be honest with their disclosure. So if a company is honest in their financial disclosures, chances are they'll be honest in their non-financial data disclosures. So yeah, the government can perhaps rely on companies to disclose, to get a feel of you know, where we are or where we can go, and for the government to implement targets for the city, for instance, which is
Sorry.
which is what you were referring to.
Yeah.
And they need to get a feel because your target have to be achievable, So if they look at it from the top, it might be thumbs up and unachievable for each company. So they have to look at each sector in isolation. There's high emitters, there's low emitters, So the collection of data by each company might help, the regulators and the local municipalities to get a feel of where the targets should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The co-founder of MN Risk Services is waiting for a chat. Let's make a bit of room for her to come join us.
Okay, not a problem.
Cool. Welcome back to our podcast. The co-founder of MN Risk Services, Masentle. How you doing?
I'm good, and know yourself?
Good. Little Betty tells me you are studying. What are you studying?
Yes, I am doing my Master of Science in Interdisciplinary Global Change Studies. I'm studying here at the University of Witwatersrand.
Yeah.
So basically, we study at a research institute. So the university course has its own research institution called the Global Change Institute, where we just look at climate change issues.
Yeah, you blew my brains off camera when you mentioned this interdisciplinary stuff. Please explain.
Well, it's essentially climate change and sustainability. I think the fact it's called interdisciplinary because it involves numerous disciplines. I think when you say climate change to a layman, it just sounds like something that's so far removed that we don't understand that we are connected to the climate. So the interdisciplinary of it is the fact that there's some who focused on weather forecasting. So when there is heavy rainfall, that affects people. So there are people who work on forecasting that and the safety of people in those disasters. So that would be more of the meteorology aspect, the weather aspect. And then we also have forestry. So the climate, within climate changes, when the land changes, because of climate change, it affects agriculture. So it's interdisciplinary because there's meteorology in this aspect, there's also agriculture. But because climate change is caused by air pollution, which is the energy sector now, we also have that sector. So that's why it's called interdisciplinary, because it involves numerous disciplines. But apart from that, we don't just study the science aspect of climate change, but we understand that there's politics that affect climate change. If the global north, for example, says, no, we're not interested in this climate issue, then it affects us. So it's not just focusing on the science of climate change, but also the political aspects and the social aspects and the economic aspect. That's why there's this interdisciplinary.
And you do all of that?
Yes.
That is of interest to you?
I am mostly in the energy sector.
Okay.
But I also I'm interested in water, so I do energy efficiency and water efficiency.
An activist daughter matched up with a capitalist mother. How has it been working with your mother on MN Risk Services?
At first it was difficult. At first it was difficult.
Yeah.
But I think we both strike a balance with in working with each other, because as much as I want to be a social activist, climate activist, I still need to make a living. Yes, I still need to make money in that.
So she also
yes. So it's difficult sometimes, but it's also quite refreshing because I review her work, she reviews my work, her from a more corporate side, me from a more academic standpoint. I think that's also quite a good balance.
Yeah. You were at the Fakultise Festival that happened a month I think ago, at the Timberwolf Digital Present. What were you talking about that happened to miss your chat?
Oh no, I was talking about just sustainability in general and the role of technology in sustainability. So monitoring your carbon emissions using water efficient technologies, because South Africa is a climate change hotspot, in that I mentioned that water supply is not as much as we experienced the Day Zero event not so long ago in the Western Cape. So as much as it's getting drier, there we are more prone to droughts, although there are floods, because the region is drier and warmer, the water evaporates. So yes, so I was talking a bit of my work in leveraging technology for environmental sustainability.
So for the ordinary citizen out there who may be wondering, what am I doing that could be contributing to the high carbon footprint in this country? What would you say to them? How would you answer a question like that?
I mean, I think we don't contribute as much to carbon footprint as people, those that's more on the corporate sector. Not that we don't have a responsibility, but we have less of a contribution there. And what I do see is that that's being pushed on people, that, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, where we don't focus on corporations. But essentially with people, because there's a lot of waste. We don't recycle, we just litter, right? And that ends up in landfill. That's water pollution, that's air pollution. So first and foremost, I think we as people have the responsibility to be environmentally conscious and sustainable in that manner, because we tend to blame the public sector on issues, but forget that there's also a bit of a role that we can play. So if we want clean cities, it doesn't help that the public sector will come and clean and then people litter right after that. We also have a responsibility in society.
Sounds a bit like a chicken and egg there. The private sector is producing all of this rubbish.
Yes.
And
I wanted to come in there. Definitely.
It's on the consuming end.
Yes.
So where do we start? Who should be held most responsible?
Definitely the private sector. Policy should focus on the private sector and how they produce the material, that they should be responsible. As I said, that a lot of the times things are pushed on people that, oh, but you do this, you do that. But sometimes that's what's most available. If plastic packaging is what's available, then it's almost as if you don't have a choice but to purchase that. And then the responsibility is pushed onto citizens instead of corporations.
Khothatso, you were quite the capitalist. Capital in its form doesn't really consider people and that type of thing. They just consider their bottom line. Is it fair to put this responsibility on capital to say, hey, you're making money by polluting the land? Be a bit more careful. I don't think they'll ever do that.
So the regulations now, remember earlier I spoke about the regulations that are rapidly unfolding. That also will cover that.
Okay.
So the producer, right, is now responsible from they call it circular economy, from the production of a product to where it ends. It cannot be that, you remember, the communities are consumers. So the responsibility is now shifting from expecting the communities to do the right thing. The education will continue, do the right thing as a community, but then they cannot be held responsible. So the responsibility is now shifting towards the producers to ensure that they understand the life cycle of their products. So what they produce, where it ends, they need to report on that. So that shift is happening at the moment. So people won't be held. When you go to malls nowadays, like you go to Masentle Mall, there's a big recycling, and when you go to with your e-commerce companies, most of them will have a big bin where you can just unpack your your package and you throw it in there to make sure that they assume the responsibility of making sure that package doesn't go to landfill. I think that journey is we are growing in that space, and I would assume that I will speak on behalf of corporations that they actually are trying to ensure that the responsibility shouldn't be with the consumer in the first place. With education nowadays and activism, people are learning that I supported your business. You better make sure that
Yeah. So you are part of the G20 under the Y20 agreement. Do you find that in terms of governance and regulation, we're regulated adequately in the space of climate change?
I mean, policies are always there.
Okay.
Policies are always there. They're unfolding policies, and youth is being brought more. However, we'll see how everything unfolds, because often policies are in place. I think, if I'm not mistaken, South Africa has good policies.
We do.
But the problem is the implementation of the policies.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So it doesn't sound like you're very confident in the implementation of the policies there.
I'll be confident one day. I'm not confident now.
Okay. What's one of or some of the most proudest moments for you having been part of the Y20?
I think when we had the Y20, when we went to the meeting in the Y20 in August, just discussing the how youth can contribute to the G20. So that, and also I was also invited to present at the Indaba, the Youth Digital Indaba.
Yeah.
I was invited to go present there because I am part of the G20 Youth, the Y20. I was invited to go present there and just talk about imminent risk and my journey of imminent risk and how we promote sustainable business practices. So that was my proudest moment, that I was at a national event talking about imminent risk services as youth, invited by the Y20.
Interesting. I tried to do a bit of like a poll where I was asking young people what's their understanding of the G20. And a lot just went to say, this sounds like another exercise for government to find an excuse to eat money by fixing few roads and things like that. I asked, do you find that this G20 summit may potentially have an impact on your life? They were like, nah, I don't see that. So if you were to explain the G20 in its entirety to the youth of this country, what would you say the G20 is?
So there are many themes to the G20, right? So in terms of climate change, it's because South Africa is very reliant on coal power. So it's discussing how we can transition from coal power to more renewable energy. Since we have an energy crisis in this country, discourse about investments into more renewable energy. There's technology, right? And I was in the technology working group in the Y20 because I specialize in green technology, which is also part of energy. And we were talking that AI needs to be more contextualized, right? And I heard there were talks about the fact that there's a problem with weather systems, right?
Yeah.
Meteorologists are educated, but the problem is that they don't have the correct material.
Right.
So a meteorologist in South Africa has limited equipment in order to predict disasters compared to the US, for example. So there was discourse around that okay, now technology also needs to be towards our context, because then if there's climate change in the global north, they can prepare people to evacuate. Where here, we can't plan people can't evacuate because the machines are not as accurate as in the global north. So just talking about that, and also accountability, the fact that things like climate change is a social issue. It's not like no one is not accountable for it. All right. So it's just holding the global north accountable, but also the global south talking about their issues and how the global north can invest in the global south for issues, some issues that they have perpetuated or caused, such as climate change.
Do you think we should be, as a country, we should be looking into green energy so early into our democracy? And I ask because if you look at some of the most successful economies in the world were built off of coal power. And South Africa is sitting on over 400 years of coal. As it stands, we're still exporting some of our A-grade coal to the global north, who are screaming, go green. But they come around our shores and they take our best coals to go build their economies. Is it not too early for South Africa to be considering a green economy?
There's something called the just energy transition. So that it doesn't mean things should just happen rapidly now. It should happen over a period of time. Because it wouldn't be sustainable. And another thing about sustainability and the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary of it is that I don't think there's ever a perfect situation because we live in a world of finite resources. So when you solve something, you find out that, but I'm causing an issue elsewhere, right? Like when you look at hydro energy and Egypt and Ethiopia complaining about, if the use of hydro energy lowers the flow of water in Egypt and Sudan, and that affects the viability of the land, that affects the amount of agricultural output. So that's called the water energy food nexus. So there's never a perfect situation because when you solve one thing, it brings about another issue. But I don't think we want to be. It needs the change needs to be gradual. But I don't think we want to move. I don't think the world want to move and then we get left behind.
If I can just add there, also that speaks to the having voices, outside voices telling you what to do. We need to do an assessment internally, and this sustainability transition based on what works for us, what impacts us right now. We need to create jobs. Imagine being told by countries that don't have a problem of high unemployment rate to go digital when you know very well that your digital migration is going to increase your unemployment rate. So the assessment have to happen locally so that the gradual transition or migration speaks to the conditions in our country. And that's the foundation of MN Risk Services. To say we can't hear people that don't understand what we go through. Tell us how to respond to these risks.
I see.
Yeah.
And so that as the MN Risk Services, I'm reminded of this greenwashing article that Bill Gates wrote almost as a change of hearts. He's been one of the champions of green economies, going green and being environmentally friendly as possible. And suddenly he writes an article that suggests we may not need to be that conscious. What do you make of that article?
I mean, just look at the global south, right? Whenever there's a disaster, it's fatal. All right. So the thing about climate change is that it's not all natural. There are people who are responsible for it. And with that responsibility comes money. Like, you cause something that we are suffering. You need to pay for this, right? And no one wants to pay. So I think that's the main issue that, if you're holding the global north responsible, if you're holding these organizations responsible for their contribution to climate change, they don't want to contribute.
It's very interesting. This man is smart. This Bill Gates is smart.
Yeah.
So this article is trying to avoid a potential charge in the future to say company X cost so much.
This percentage.
Right.
Yeah.
So as a result, maybe absorb the same percentage of cost to the damage done by this.
Yeah.
So he's already saying, look, capital must survive this by saying, look, it's fine. We'll survive this. Human beings have survived worse. Again, capital always has capital interest.
I am a South African at heart.
Yeah.
I was born in this country, ne? And I wasn't born in okay, I come from a poor background, if I can just put it bluntly, right? And I know that, to survive, she can be a socialist or activist. People that can afford to be activists are people that comes from hardworking families like us, where they can just be free to say whatever they want.
Right.
At the end of the day, you need to go home to a plate of food. Someone has to put. Activism creates what do we call it? So there's revenge to being an active, so we get punished for speaking your mind. It's always been like, it's like in all corporate as well. If you speak your mind and you speak the truth, you get punished. And that punishment comes in the form of, suppressing you and getting you poorer, and no one wants to be in the state of poverty forever, right? And I mean, I had to work hard to put her where she is right now, where she can speak her mind. But take a young person from Soweto or from the township that there's no one at home working, they are on NSFAS, right? They just barely making it. That person doesn't have a voice, So I much as I'm chasing capital with this platform that I've created, or this company that it has to make money. That's the bottom line, I'm also mindful of the fact that there is a lot that needs to be done for South African, especially Black South Africans. We get I think it bothers me when we get told that BEE laws are race-based when they didn't even benefit us in any case, So having been in corporate, I know for the fact that the implementation didn't happen. Maybe we should be honest and try to implement the right way so that we can prosper as a country. Everyone can benefit. Don't try to push it out and push a checklist approach or just making sure that, as long you just minimum compliance with what they want. But at the core of your business, that's not what you want. So if we could just become honest with the approach, it will see, a lot of change, and much as I am chasing capital with this company, I also have been impacted by, inequality, impacted by all the social ills that South Africans go through. I go through too. I have to work 10 times harder to get to a place where, people in other racial communities, just push until you just blew in your face to just get a little bit, and we don't want our kids to go through that. That's why we push so hard. And so for a lot of young people in South Africa, they deserve better. They don't have to go through what we went through. To this day, I can't think of any company that I worked for that has really uplifted me as a person. So I had to hop from one company to another. And I would imagine that's what a lot of Black people go through. So you grow your career. My approach towards corporate and working for corporations. And that's what I also taught her, is that you work for yourself. These are your skills. This is your education. This is your knowledge.
Yeah.
You are there to earn a living. Your application of that knowledge has to benefit you as a person. You don't just give, you have to extract as well. So that's always been my approach. So a lot I learned from my last company because of that approach. So I always push to get value as well. Hence, I was able to take the experience that I acquired to open a company of my own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you do come across as someone that has been through a lot of hardships to be where you are today. Sorry. So, as a parting shot, before we shut it down, we've been running for quite some time. You went through corporate, you went through consultancy, you ultimately built a company. In the company that you built, you found ways to collaborate with different skills that the company need. My question to you and what I'm asking you essentially is, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs out there to survive in this tough space where you have somehow managed to make it through by following quite a number of disciplines, if I may?
So I I took a linear approach towards launching a company. We calculated like every cent counts, right? And I think what helps me the most, I had to take a knock in the lifestyle. So I don't think I'm a very flashy person, right? And I remember promising her that when you finish school, you finish university, I'm gonna buy a car for you. But that's a pipe dream now. Because there's a company, so we will just alternate. We'll just, there's sacrifices. I think a lot of us, when we start working, we buy cars, and then there is a pressure for you to buy a house. And in the past, a house was regarded as an asset. I don't think a house is an asset. I don't have a bond house for the mere reason that you are bound into a debt of 30 years. And a house is not essentially an asset because it's not generating you money, So if they can start, the mindset around, sacrificing certain things in a short run to serve a long-term dream. And for me, I've invested a little money in the business, obviously, for it to kickstart it, because there's bills before. With pre-revenue stage, before there's revenues, there's bills to pay for the business to run. So what helped me is those sacrifices. That just doing away with certain things that you can do away with. And I think when I started the business and launched it and look at the financial statements, just the forecasting, the cash flow, you look at the expenses that you need to fulfill. The personal expenses, they're like your car, and I even forget to pay that. Then they call me for the first time in my life. Right. I get calls from the creditors that you didn't pay us this, that. I'm like, okay, I've forgotten about you, So your focus is mainly on the business, So you are able to let go of certain luxury things while you work for the cause. And I'm also mindful of the fact that you will not get funding. You have to start first. So so for a Black child, it's just bad, because you need money to start a business, and for you to go to the funders, you need to show that you've started. How do you want to start without money? And the most of us Black people, we don't have that money. But I've proven one thing with M&R services, that you just go knock at doors, find people that have a long-term goals, that are willing to to invest their time in a course with the view that, the benefit will, generate in the future. That was the only way I could launch this. People that are willing to invest their skills for a long-term benefit or a benefit that will generate in a long term.
All right.
Yeah.
Masentle, we had Professor Mzungu on this podcast a while ago to speak about the G20. One of the questions we asked was, beyond the G20, what power do we have to implement all these beautiful things that we've been talking about during the summit and during the process? Do you find that we will have enough power to implement everything we spoke of to make the G20 as impactful as we wish?
I think more than anything, we need the resources. We need the monetary resources. If we talk about the energy transition, if we talk about being resilient to climate change, those things need resources. So we'll have to wait and see how the G20 unfolds and whether resources will be extended and whether they'll be used in a way that is correct.
Okay. Thank you so much for making the time. It was an absolute pleasure talking to both of you. And we wish you nothing but the best in MN's Press Services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That has been the Echo Podcast. Please do like, subscribe, share on all social media platforms.
Definitely. Thank you.